want a sandwich. Now. Oh, sandwich wench. Yo, wench. Sandwich. Now. I'm going to need a sandwich. A sandwich. I'm going to need a sandwich. A sandwich. I'm going to need a sandwich. A sandwich. A sandwich. A sandwich. I'm going to need a sandwich. A sandwich. I'm going to need a sandwich. A sandwich. A sandwich. Oh, sandwich wench. I want a sandwich. Sandwich. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Prime Minister's Question stream for what, July the 6th, 2022. Today we have a very interesting PMQs, and I genuinely mean very interesting. Because Boris he's on a back foot here, but this kind of back foot is, it's something. For this to make sense, you'd have to know that, Boris has kind of gotten himself into a bit of hot water, and this hot water has been because of one MP that he backed that he shouldn't have, he shouldn't have backed at all because of accusations levied against this man. I'm gonna try and find a better resolution video actually, because this one is on the UK Parliament channel, and the resolution is 480, and I don't want 480, I want 480? Yeah, 480. I don't want that. That's rubbish. So we're going to go with a nice 1080p resolution, which doesn't look like it at all. And we're going to try... sandwiches are always the most metal thing ever. Hello, Big Bad Wolfie, Dusk Plains, and Sunless Wing Zero. Hope you're all well today. Please remember to smash the like. It really helps this channel. Unless you want to support me in a different way, in which case that Ko-fi thing in the center there is your best friend. So... let us dive straight in. I started early on purpose, by the way, because I wanted to get into this. Here we are. There be video. Pull up the chat so I can see you. Hello.
Protestations.
Right. So, PMQs. Boris has basically lost a lot of MPs. I believe at time of stream, 32. Many of whom were on his front bench. The more well-known casualties would include Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak. And I'm going to insert something now. Many have criticised these resignations as more proof of Boris's failing, and that is certainly how it can be interpreted. Perhaps apply that interpretation equally, instead of just jumping on Nish Kumar because he's railing on two politicians just because it makes it look like you're a bit racist, because even though he's not funny, he's the only one who's really taken flack for this, and it doesn't make anyone look good. I mean, he's not funny, but just yeah. Is Boris Turkish? No, he's a mop. But yes, they certainly do. Their hair gets destroyed. It's why Michael Fabricant here has this amazing blonde hair that he's always had and is totally not a wig. Isn't Sajid Javid somewhere around here? I know he was sat somewhere up here originally when he delivers his statement after PMQs as to why he resigned. I assume he takes his seat at some other point during proceedings. And Keir Starmer, I haven't seen PMQs by the way. Hello, Radical Greek. There is no version of this where Boris isn't going to get absolutely flayed for all the resignations that have taken place. Because he officially definitely has less than half his party on side. And that's bad. Really bad. But that's typical of Conservative behaviour. When in office, they don't really know what to do to stay there. They've been there for 12 years and they've been through 3 prime ministers so far. So they really don't know how to stay there. Labour do, They elect somebody who doesn't know what they're doing for 15 years.
Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, I would like to point out that the British Sign Language interpretation of proceedings is available to watch on Parliament Live TV. We now start with questions to Prime Minister. Everett!
One, please, sir.
Prime Minister!
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is a big day as we implement the biggest tax cut.
Oh, God. People expect him to resign, I'm sure.
As we implement the biggest tax cut.
By the way, this guy next to him, Nadim Zahawi, he was originally in Boris's cabinet when Boris first became Prime Minister, right? And then he got rid of him. Yet at the 11th hour when he needs a new Chancellor, it brings him back. And this guy says he'll be the evidence-led Chancellor. That's what he said he'll be. I will say, unlike Rishi Sunak, whose wife is really rich, Nadim Zahawi is a self-made millionaire. He did it all himself. And that is definitely something worth celebrating, really.
A decade, increasing national insurance thresholds to make tax lower and the tax burden easier. These changes will
That's a lie.
benefit 30 million people across the UK. And I'm pleased to say that two of those people are seated here in the public gallery today. Mandy Banfield and Alan Calzari, a typical worker, will now save £330 per year with 70% of employees
Which most of will go towards energy bill price hikes.
better off as a result. That is real money for real people. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the House will also join me in wishing the best of luck to England and Northern Ireland, who are competing in the UEFA Women's Euro 2022 tournament, which starts today. And
Couldn't
I'm sure
care
they will
less.
Both make the nation proud.
I legit don't watch women's football. I've watched it once or twice, thought it was interesting, but then I realised it was nowhere near as competitive as the guys, so I stopped paying attention. No offence.
This morning, Mr. Speaker, I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I expect I shall have further such meetings later today.
He did after this. He had to endure a committee hearing where, and I will say it outright, I had it on the background while I was rendering today's Halls of Injustice, and I couldn't help but notice that they were asking intentionally loaded questions. Now, yes, Boris never answered anything, really. He really didn't. Because he wasn't sure if they were trying to lead him to something to catch him out. You could tell that he thought they had him on something, so he gave intentionally nebulous answers.
Thank you, sir. Last week, we launched a new approach to combating knife crime in Milton Keynes, which means increased use of stop and search. It means tougher charging and custody, tougher sentencing, faster youth diversion, and more work with parents and communities. Would the Prime Minister agree with me that if you carry a knife in Milton Keynes, you should expect to end up behind bars?
No. Oh, and to address the Thai thing, it's real. Boris is just a very messy man. I mean, thing is, his career's been in suits, but he's always looked out of place unless he's wearing sweats. Then he looks like he actually belongs. It's just when he starts talking, you realise he should be in a suit. It's just the guy has never really done well at fitting in. And as far as the knife thing goes, stop and search has been considered a bad policy by Labour for many years. Problem is, whenever they then ban it in places where they're in charge, knife crime goes through the roof. There is an argument of whether or not it is racial, and there are certain statistics that do outright point out there are communities in this country that have a proclivity towards the sharp, pointy thingy. Yes. I think it depends. It really does. On the region and the context.
Yes, I thank my honourable friend for what he's doing to campaign for tougher sentences in Milton. He's in campaign against knife crime, and as a result of what the Conservatives have done, adults who are convicted of certain offences involving a knife, including threatening with a knife or a second offence of possession, face a minimum
yes, a sword
sentence
duel
of 6 months imprisonment, Mr. Speaker. And guess who voted against tougher sentences for knife crime?
So, interestingly, really was that Keir Starmer should know better because, hello soliloquy, he worked with the criminal justice in the CPS. He was in charge at one point. He should know better. But his idea of a deterrent is just therapy. Mollycoddle and excuse me, mollycoddle and therapy, and that doesn't work. Hello, Orla, by the way. He is definitely a C word. Well, at the moment, he's more of a snake. He wriggles out of it. Hello, Dresden. And if the copper gets a knife to the neck, the copper will more than likely die. That's what will happen, and the police will do nothing about it.
No! We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
He's going to get a lot of applause, and he'll get more if he hammers Boris in this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is the start of the Women's Euros, and I know the whole House will wish the Lionesses the very best of luck in bringing football home.
I couldn't care less. No offence, but you can champion all that bollocks all you want. I couldn't care less. I'm sorry. I really don't give a fuck about women's football. And I might sound a little bit sexist, but if I want to watch women's sport, I'm more than likely going to watch tennis. Because then I don't have to suffer the usual bollocks about equal pay. And other such bullshit, like not as entertaining sport. Football's not that good. I don't think it is anyway. Let's see. Hello, I called out your video last week, but before I watched it, no worries. It's all good. And walking sticks are definitely fashionable.
It's also... Mr. Speaker, it's also been 40 years since the death of Terence Higgins. Terence worked at Hansard by day and Heaven by night before he sadly died of AIDS. The Labour Party and the Terence Higgins Trust are committed to ending new cases of HIV by 2030.
How? How do you end that? I know that there is a rumour, but there are some reports of cures, and that's great. But I don't think you're actually going to know.
Together we can.
You should talk to the Californian governor. You might have a wonderful discussion about, solving issues. Hello, Cyrene. Hope you're well.
Mr. Speaker.
And you're not late. I started, 45 minutes early.
Last week, a government minister was accused of sexually assaulting a young man.
Yep, that person's been suspended.
I want to quote the victim's account. He says, "He grabbed my arse and then he slowly moved his hand down in front of my groin. I froze." I accept that's not easy listening, but it's a reminder to all those propping up this Prime Minister just how serious the situation is.
In this context, while he was appointed to the position and Prime Minister may or may not have known about it, but careful how you phrase this, Keir. Just think. And hello, Viking rune person. That's fair. I'm glad the history, actually, you say that, is actually quite fascinating, truly. I'm just not interested in watching it. I don't care about football. I really don't. Hello, Silver said so. Hello, Jake Thompson. Hope you're well, both of you.
He knew the accused minister had previously
and yes, AIDS and HIV are not
behaviour, but he promoted him to a position of power anyway. Why?
So this has been going on all week. Boris had apologised because there was a belief that he did know. Some quotes being thrown about. I saw the committee thing after this, and I can't tell if Boris did know or not.
Mr. Speaker, that individual, the member for Tamworth, no longer has the Conservative whip. He no longer has a job. He is no longer, as soon as I was made aware of the allegation that he has just read out, Mr. Speaker, and the complaint that was made, he lost his status as a Conservative MP, and he is now the subject, Mr. Speaker, of an independent investigation to the complaints and grievances panel. And that is entirely right. And I want to say to him, Mr. Speaker, that I abhor bullying and abuse of power anywhere in Parliament, in this party or in any other party.
Keir Starmer.
He didn't answer the question. Hey, Teddy, hope you're well, my dude.
None of that explains why he promoted him in the first place. And we've heard it all before. We know who he really is. Before he was found out, he's reported to have said he's handsy. That's the problem. Pincher.
Report doesn't mean confirmed.
By name.
And it is Dresden.
Pincher
100%
by
is.
nature. Now, has the Prime Minister ever said words to that effect? And I'm not asking for bluster and half-truth. We've all had enough of that. Yes or no?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to trivialise what happened. Yes, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Mr. Speaker. I'm not, because there's very serious complaints have been raised against the member for Tamworth, and they're now being investigated, Mr. Speaker. It is true. It is true that a complaint was raised when he was in the Foreign
Hey,
Office.
Dynamite. Hope you're well. I'm very well, Teddy.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true, Mr. Speaker, that it was raised with me. I greatly regret that he continued in office, and I've said that. I have said that before, Mr. Speaker. I have said that before.
It tells you how important the country's policies and politics are, that they're going to spend an entire PMQ about this, arguing semantics. How was Rammstein? It was absolutely fucking great. Honestly. Once in a lifetime thing. I went to Principality in Cardiff on Friday, Thursday last week, 30th. And it was great. I got lots of pictures and videos. It was a great time.
Mr. Speaker, but he is now.
Yeah, apparently you do vet
subject
them without
of,
knowing them. Apparently,
an independent investigation, and that is the right thing, Mr. Speaker. And frankly, I think the people of this country would like also to hear. They would like also to hear about other jobs that are held by people in this country, not least the 500,000 people we got off welfare into work in the last 6 months alone, Mr. Speaker. Those are things.
I don't think you got them off that. I think lots of them were forced onto it, potentially putting themselves in greater risk or danger.
That are making differences to the lives of people up and down the country, and I'm proud of it.
I noticed that on his thumb he's got ink. He does what I do, I think. He twiddles a pen like a drumstick. I do that and I end up with loads of pen lines on my hand. My left hand is covered in pen scratches from black ink.
Keir Starmer.
Does it with his thumb.
No denial.
I don't know
And
why
he
they
says the
stand,
matter
actually.
was
I have no
resolved
idea.
When he means it was upheld. And they're all sitting there as if this is normal behaviour.
Well, I'll be honest, some of them aren't. They've already resigned.
When that
Oh, and by the way, that's 2 questions Boris hasn't answered.
young man reported his attack to a government whip, she asked him if he was gay. When he said that he was, she replied, "That doesn't make it straightforward." That comment will sicken anyone who's experienced sexual assault and then be made to feel like they somehow asked for it.
Victim blaming, I believe that's called.
Or who worry that prejudice means their complaint won't be taken seriously. Will he apologise for those disgraceful comments on behalf of his government?
Mr. Speaker, I've already said that I regret very much that the member for Tamworth continued to hold office after the complaint was made against him in the Foreign Office.
I wouldn't mind seeing Nightwish.
It was resolved in the Foreign Office.
And
His
yeah, the lead
apology
singer
was
changed.
accepted. But clearly that was not enough. And in hindsight, Mr. Speaker, I should have realised that he would not change. However,
Hey, Straight Sith Mel, hope you're well.
of last week, and when I was
Oh, and everyone who's arrived, smash like.
he's read out
Thank you.
about the complaint that was made against the honourable member, I acted immediately, Mr. Speaker, and I took the whip away from him. And we will not tolerate.
Can't have time to do a sex pest. Very true, Silver. Very true.
Or any other party, Mr. Speaker. And what we also want to do is to help people up and down the country with the things that also matter to them, like cutting their taxes, Mr. Speaker, by £330 this year, which is what we're doing.
Keir Starmer.
So Boris's tactic here isn't to simply say, you know what, yes, I'm very sorry that this happened. No. He is projecting and then humble bragging about what he has achieved in 3 years, getting us through the global pandemic. Because Boris can't give an answer. In the committee meeting I mentioned this after this, he really does this for 2 hours plus. He argues semantics with Chris Bryant, Someone asks him about mathematics and he knows it's a loaded question, so Boris doesn't answer. But when people ask him straight up questions, Boris can't do it. He's instead, let's just focus on this, please. Let's focus on this, please. Let's just focus on this, please. Not that, this, please. That's his mentality in this, which is why this has gone down like a lump of lead.
Doesn't that just...
And as far as Boris resigning, when Theresa May won a vote of no confidence, she stayed in office for 6 more months and then resigned. And Boris won, but by a tighter margin. If he stays only because he still believes he gets 2 more years. And he only stays because, because he refuses to let go. He's the Jar Jar. Well, yeah, that's that.
Awful behaviour, unacceptable in any walk of life. It's there for all to see, but he ignores it. It was the same when his ally was on the take from the lobbyists. It was the same when his Home Secretary was bullying staff. It was the same when taxpayers' money was being abused. And it was the same when he and his mates parted their way through lockdown. Anyone quitting now, after defending all that, hasn't got a shred of integrity. Mr. Speaker.
I mean, the fact that he's still there says something. It tells him to leave, or they change the rules. Well, to do that, a vote of no confidence has to happen. Graham Brady won't do anything about it right now.
Speaker, isn't this the first recorded case of the sinking ships fleeing the rat?
Mr. Speaker, look, he talks about. He should hear what his lot say about him, Mr. Speaker. He talks about integrity. He wanted to install the member for Islington North into number 10.
Oh, for God's
Mr.
sake!
Speaker. That's what he wanted to do. Imagine what our country and what the world would be like.
Legit no idea which party will win the next election. Annoyingly, I think Labour will. But it'll be a minority government. Because the SNP will not form a coalition unless they get an independence vote. And Labour won't give them that. No one will.
Right now, he talks about integrity. He voted 48 times to overturn the will of the British people and take us back into the European Union. And by the way, listening to his muddled speech the other day, that is exactly what he would do again.
Deflection.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about integrity, but Mr. Speaker, he has voted time and time again against sanctions on criminals that would put them behind bars. This is the government that is tough on... I'm sorry, he talks about integrity. He is himself facing a criminal investigation, Mr. Speaker, which he asked me to resign.
Keir Starmer.
What a pathetic spectacle. The dying act of his political career is to parrot that nonsense.
Oh, honestly, straight to Mel, none of us know either.
Only in office because no one else is prepared to debase themselves.
No,
longer.
Labour have already said they won't.
Charge of
They
the
can't
lightweight
yet.
brigade.
They'd have to win at least a second term for it to work.
Have some self-respect.
They'd have to win a second term to be able
For a
to push
week,
that.
He's had them defending his decision to promote a sexual predator. Every day, the lines he's forced them to take have been untrue. First, that he was unaware of any allegation. Untrue. Then, he was unaware of any specific allegation. Untrue. Then he was unaware of any serious specific allegation.
Excuse me.
And now he wants them to go out and say that he simply forgot. His whip was
Boris
a
does
sexual
do that a lot.
Anyone with anything about
Oh yeah, that room
him
must be
would be long gone
steaming.
from his front bench.
Probably explains
In
why,
the middle
the majority
of a
of, like,
crisis, doesn't the country
look at the majority of the politicians wearing suits. Then you get to Angela Rayner and a few other ladies on the Labour benches, just not. They have to be different. Always have to be different. Just saying.
deserve better than a Z-list cast of nodding dogs?
The problem here is, right, so, hang on. Oh, my apologies. In this, Keir Starmer could be asking actual questions on this. Instead, he's making statements to the chair and ending with a asinine question. He could absolutely hammer the crap out of Boris right now. He could. Absolutely. But he is not doing it. And instead, And that's giving Boris this chance to humble brag about everything they do.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's exactly when times are tough and when the country faces pressures on the economy and pressures on their budgets, Mr. Speaker, and when we had the biggest war in Europe for 80 years, Mr. Speaker, that is exactly the moment that you'd expect a government to continue with its work, not to walk away, Mr. Speaker, and to get on with our job and to focus on the things that matter to the people of this country. And so we're not only cutting taxes today, Mr. Speaker, we're putting £1,200 into every one of the 8 million most vulnerable households in the country, Mr. Speaker, thanks to the strength of our economy and thanks to the decisions that we took, Mr. Speaker, which he opposed at the time.
See? Humble brag. And not an answer, because he can't answer that question. That's a rubbish question, but he didn't answer. That's 5, by the way.
Here's Sama.
He's delivering is chaos. I started this session with a quote from the young victim in all this, how he froze when he was attacked. When I was prosecuting rapists, I heard that from victims all the time. Victims said they froze because it's not about sex.
So I'm waiting. I'm guaranteeing Boris is going to talk about Jimmy Savile in response to that comment about when he was prosecuting those people.
It's about power.
Oh, it is.
And
Power
the
and control.
Power the disgraced government minister had was handed to him by that Prime Minister. And he's only in power because he's been propped up for months by a corrupted party defending the indefensible.
So they had a chance to get rid of him, and they didn't. And that tells you, in that context, that tells you they're more interested in staying in power than holding on to integrity. I haven't seen Darkest Hour. I've seen clips of it. It looks amazing. Really does. Hello, what?
So it's no longer a case about swapping the person at the top. Isn't it clear? The only way the country can get the fresh start it deserves is by getting rid of the lot of them.
So Boris won't allow that to happen, because for that to happen would mean the general election, and he still holds a mandate. That mandate guarantees him 5 years. Regardless of what's going on, it's guaranteed. And that also is good for him because, and I think this is why he's doing it, if he stays in office for a certain number of years, he's guaranteed a pension when he leaves office. He'll need that money to live a high life.
Mr. Speaker,
If I can afford to buy it, I'll get it at some point, Teddy.
We've got to get through Prime Minister's questions. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the difference between this government and that opposition is we have a plan and they do not. We're getting on with it. They want to focus on this type of issue, Mr. Speaker. We're going to get on with our jobs. We're going to control prices, Mr. Speaker, by not giving in to the union barons. They're paid by the union barons and they're proud of it. We were the first European country to arm the Ukrainians, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud of that. And
the same Ukrainians that said to rebuild their country or to carry on would cost 750 billion, which is 5 times their annual GDP. That's expensive, and they need 65 of it up front. It's a lot of money.
those guys, Mr. Speaker, the party opposite, not only
and the bonus is 100% lame.
into number 10, the member for Islington North, but 8 of them, including the shadow.
Look, Jeremy Corbyn could have been Prime Minister. No lie, I think he could have been at a different time. When he was up against, when it was Brexit, he was undone. 100% undone. Hello, Michael, hope you're well. Brexit undid him. Yes, okay, the accusations also of hooking up with some rather shady characters didn't help either. But there's no one who's ever been in office that hasn't been caught with someone shady. There really hasn't been. So that's a redundant complaint. It was Brexit that undid him. And that's what got Boris in with the biggest majority in a long time.
Shadow Foreign Secretary, the shadow deputy leader.
Dresden, it's emotional damage.
6 others voted to get rid of our independent nuclear deterrent, Mr. Speaker. Today we are cutting taxes, we're helping 500,000 people.
Just a thing, because I always find this fascinating. Keir Starmer makes it a point that he is surrounded by at least 10 women. I don't understand why he has to do that. I feel like it looks staged. So when you go back to him in a second, maybe in a minute, you'll see. It's a silly thing for me to notice, but it's something you always notice.
And we are going to continue to deliver on the mandate.
Do we see it again? No? Alright, let me go back a little bit, just so you can see what I mean. Right.
Including the shadow foreign secretary, the shadow deputy leader, and six others voted to get rid.
They do soliloquy. Here we are, look. So you'll notice the legs here at the back. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 around him. And the only guy near him is Lammy. Just, yeah. Power, why should the West pay for Ukraine? Honest question. I don't know. Problem we have is, I guess, that it's how one interprets what Russia has done. I think that's the argument, and government interprets it as illegal. And that's many have said that it's perhaps corrupt on Ukraine's part to expect that much money. If anyone's going to pay a bill, it should be Russia, to be honest. That's arguments made. Diversity hires. Well, in the context of this front bench, Angela Rayner is the only one that Keir Starmer couldn't hire nor fire. And that is a pause face right there. So let's go ahead. It's the paper pervert.
Ian Blackford.
Oh, look, I nailed it. Paper pervert, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I give every best wish to the England and Northern Ireland ladies football team as they approach the Euro Championships? There's nothing better than seeing your teams in these finals. Can we also commemorate the...
Not that you'd know anything about it. Scotland didn't even qualify for the World Cup.
passing 40 years ago of Terence Higgins and all those that have died from AIDS and sin. And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, the whole House will want to join with me in passing condolences to the family and friends of the Scottish football goalkeeping legend, Andy Gorham.
Oh, Andy Gorham, man. The guy was told he had 6 months to live, and he said, look, I'm not doing chemo because it only buys me another 3 months at most. Andy Gorham, as a goalkeeper, and I was a goalkeeper. Andy Gorham was the guy you wanted to be as a player. He was very talented, very devout, very committed, and very commanding in the box, right? He was a quality goalkeeper, and I saw the article recently of him saying that it was no point doing chemo because it only bought him a little bit more time, and it wasn't even any more comfortable. And I was like, that sucks. But man went out on his own terms at least, and I have nothing but respect for what he accomplished as a football player.
Who sadly passed far too early last weekend. He will long live in the memory of the best goalkeeper that many of us have seen.
Agreed.
Mr. Speaker, it's easy to forget that only 10 days ago, the Prime Minister was dreaming of a third term.
Lol.
Mr. Speaker, it's often said that a week is a long time.
So I think the joke there is that technically the Conservatives have only served 2 successful terms, but they're in the third now, and Boris hasn't even done one yet. So there's a joke there. Why is he wearing an Xbox logo? I think that's an SMP thing. I think. Isn't that the SMP logo?
In politics, but it turns out that 10 days is truly a lifetime. Because, let's face it, it's a minor miracle that the Prime Minister has even made it through to Prime Minister's questions, and he really ought to see the faces behind him, because, Prime Minister, it really is over. The Prime Minister is desperately clinging on to his own fantasy, but the public can't afford to put up with this farce of a government.
He sounds ill.
Longer.
He actually sounds ill.
We should be talking about the Tory cost of living crisis, soaring inflation, and the growing cost of Brexit. But instead, it's always about him. How many more ministers need to quit before he finally picks up his pen and writes his own resignation letter? Perhaps that's what he's doing now.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, I was just jotting down some notes on on his question, which I thought was excellent when he was talking about the economy. Because that is the issue that is...
I prefer the Xbox. I have an Xbox S series in my room. And given the choice, yes, I picked that over the other. And the only reason I got the S is because I couldn't afford a PS5 or an Xbox.
Families
X
up and down
series.
the country
Screw
with
that.
£1,200.
I've actually played on it once now. I actually played some FIFA with my friend Dave. We had some whiskey. It was glorious. And look, humble brag. Oh, for God's sake. It's 8. Never mind. Next question.
Actually, turns out I was wrong. He's actually the dead parrot.
Okay, I want to hear the joke. I need to hear the joke.
Getting on and doing. That is the
And yes, I know, Tartan Rose. I know.
I'm glad he likes it.
I'm still waiting for Nicola Sturgeon to announce another referendum vote thing in out of a UK thing. Independence, sorry. Which many have said would not be legal in the first place. Okay, just to clarify this. I have a PS1, 2, 3, and 4. I couldn't afford a 5. I really couldn't. I was given an S series for free. I was like, alright then. If I can ever buy a PS5, I have to say this, Sunless, because I do like PlayStation. I really do. My PS4 is next to me. I love it. But I can't afford a 5. I cannot afford a 5.
We'll move on if we live in the world of the Prime Minister. You know, a few weeks ago I compared the Prime Minister to Monty Python's Black Knight. Actually, turns out I was wrong. He's actually the dead parrot. Whether he knows it or not, he's now an ex-Prime Minister. But he will leave behind 2 deeply damaging legacies. I hope the dishonesty of his leadership follows him out of the Downing Street door. But the other legacy is that of Brexit. And that will stay. Because I'm sad to say that the Labour Party now fully supports Brexit.
Yeah, Teddy.
Scotland wants a different future, not just a different Prime Minister. So if the Prime Minister won't resign, will he call a general election
sultry stop sign.
and allow Scotland the choice of an independent future, free from the control of Westminster?
You don't understand what this free from control is. First of all, and as much as I think you'll get your independence eventually, I don't truly believe the SNP realise what they're doing. Hello, Puck Baker, by the way. I know I addressed your... I may have addressed it. Oh, the heart pin. I don't know what the heart pin's about. Sorry. Right. If they're independent, they then have to meet 37 or 36 criteria for joining the EU. One of them is a functioning and stable independent economy. Do you really believe you'll be able to implement that with your one government nation? When, really, the only trade deal you'll get with the rest of us is water. I believe you'll get independence, I really do, eventually. But I don't believe you'll be able to meet that criteria. And the EU had to implement it because of Greece and Spain not declaring their financial situations. Just thought I'd let you know. But yeah, Brexit thing's interesting because we need more time, I think. We'll come back here. Let me just have a quick look. Google Boris Johnson, see if he's resigned. No, he has not. Okay, this is interesting. So Boris has not resigned yet, therefore we cannot assume that it will happen tonight. That is fascinating, I think. Hello, Tempe. Hope you're well. Hello, Cecil Rhodes. Anyone else I have ignored or not said hello to, I'm very sorry. I just started Fallout 4 for the 20s. I don't have it on PS4, sadly. I want to play God of War, though. I'm intrigued to see whether Boris will be here next week or not. He is in a very tight spot. He now needs to unite what government he has. By the way, I noticed Priti Patel wasn't anywhere near the front benches, so I need to quickly Google her and see if she's about still. Is she still there? Okay, so she has told Boris to quit. She's the Home Secretary. Some consider her MILF territory, although she doesn't know. Because she's apparently attractive to some. But she has said that it's time for him to resign, and that is interesting. I don't know if that is possible or if it is likely, but it will take a lot of work for Boris to re-earn back the trust he has lost. Hello, Garrett. How long has it been since Theresa May resigned? Well, he got in late 2019. So, not even 3 years. Yeah. Stream God of War. Yeah, God of War is a good game. I don't have it on PC though, I'm afraid. Anyway, I'm going to vanish because I need to make a video. Yes. I also need to feed Rabbit. I smell bonfire. I need to close my windows in this heat, for God's sake. I'm going to vanish anyway. Thank you very much for joining. If you haven't already, please smash the like. It really helps this channel. And leave a comment. Yes. And I'll hopefully see you here on, well, tomorrow. There's a research stream. Friday, a political recap stream. But hopefully we'll have PMQs next.